Okay, today I want to talk to you about car camping. This is a little prequel because I'm not going car camping yet, but I am starting to get organised. I started to plan my trip last year and I like to be really organised, but today I just want to say a few things about how I get organised, the things that I consider when I'm car camping. I have a very small car. So there isn't a lot to plan for. It's quite limited. But there are certain things I really like about car camping. So I've written a list of things that I want to talk about today because I will forget things. And I just want to hit on certain things which other people, particularly women who are travelling alone, I think, will find useful. So, first of all, what do I love about car camping? Firstly, the freedom. I'm not tied to hotel bookings. I'm not tied to where I can park because I don't have a van. I'm parking in a car, and that means that I can do something called stealth parking, which means you can turn up late, park somewhere, and as long as you're gone by a sensible hour of the morning, you don't cause any problems for anybody, and that's fine. No cost except for the petrol. I take everything with me. I don't go out and buy the food, and I say apart from the petrol, the parking is free, so it doesn't break my budget. And the whole point of this is that I can go out and do things I wouldn't normally do and not have to spend the extra money, because the money is the issue. One of the other things I really like is the disconnection. Although I have my phone with me, and I have that for Google Maps for directions, etc., etc., and I'll have my second phone that I now have for recording, I don't really have any attachment to anything else. There's no laptop, there's no TV. And although my car camping trips tend to be one night only, I really enjoy that technological disconnection. The other thing that I really like is that there is no risk of cancellation. Or, as with the freedom, if something changes, I can move the date and it's not a problem. So if I can see that where I'm going is going to have really, really atrocious weather, or there's some other problem that's come up, I can cancel, I can shift my plans, and it doesn't cause any problems for anybody or anything. The things that are not so good, there's always things like that. Safety. I am staying in my car, I'm on my own. I do get quite paranoid about where I'm going to stay. I would never stay in a public car park. I would never stay in a lay-by at the side of a road. I investigate where I can park within a town centre or near houses or near somewhere, so that if something happens I can get help. And you need to be really careful about that, because I know lots of people don't have any problems, but I also know of people who do car camping, and maybe it's because they look a bit more obvious because they are in a van, where they get the knock in the middle of the night because they've taken a risk with where they've parked, or someone's tried to break in because they're a van. There are so many things that can happen. No luxuries. So because I am going in my small car, and I only have a 3-door hatchback, and it's a small 3-door hatchback, we travel light. There are no luxuries. There's no cooking facilities. There's no toilet. There's no showering. And again, that's why I would normally only do 1 or 2 nights, is because the resources are very limited. But that again, it's like going camping, and not on like wild camping. You're not even going on a campsite, so it's not going to kill me. Limited resources. I have a charger for my phone in my car, and that's pretty much it. Space, only carry the basics, only take what you actually need. There's no point in packing a ton of stuff that you're not going to use or is going to get in the way. It's a few changes of clothes, it's the right food, it's bedding. There's pretty much nothing else you need. So I'm pretty obsessed with pre-planning. So when I plan, I don't just plan my route. I plan literally everything for every kind of eventuality. Now, I did a car camping overnight trip last year as a tester, so I knew what things I hadn't thought carefully enough about. I knew what things did work, so that when I'm planning this year, I've got a better idea of the things to watch out for. So here are the things that I particularly watch out for when I'm planning. Toilets. This is a major one. It's slightly easier for men, I know. Girls, we have to think about this a bit more carefully. There is a really great public toilet app, and I will include a link below, and it lists all the public toilets, and you can contribute. So if you go to one of these public toilets and the information that's on the website isn't correct, you can submit your changes. So if you find that it's no longer there now, or it's only open between certain hours, or they're now charging, you can add that kind of information. It's really useful. I used it last year and it was really, really useful. The other thing is find out where the supermarkets are, because again, you get toilets there. And again, parking up for a bit, as long as you're careful, because they will fine you if you're not a customer and you're using their car parks, but also if you just want to have a wander around. I mean, I'm still going to be checking my cashback app, so if I see a deal while I'm out and about and I'm near that supermarket, I will go in and I will buy that thing if I think that it'll be okay in my car overnight. Free parking is an absolute must. I won't pay to park on camping sites or overnight car parks, and I plan this really carefully. So I decide wherever I'm going, I have a look at where I can park. And as I said before, I park in busy areas, or at least areas where there are people living and where it's likely to be safer. So I would prefer to park up in a town on a residential street that's reasonably quiet and doesn't look like it's going to have any trouble, outside houses. And as long as you turn up late-ish, as long as you're quiet, as long as no one can see you in your car, and as long as you're gone by whatever time you think is sensible and you don't cause any problems, that's stealth parking. Now, I use Google Maps and Google Street View to plan in advance where I'm going to park. And because Google Street View isn't always up to date, I always plan backup parking spots as well, because as I found out last year, I had checked a particular place on Google Street View, and I had also looked at an app that I also use called, I think it's called Park for Night. I'll include that link below, which generally tends to be for campers, for camper vans. It includes a lot of paid parking, but sometimes it will also include safe lay-bys, parking in country spaces, and even if you want to park up for the day and go for a walk, you might find a good spot. So I had checked this and it looked like a good place to park, and when I got there, someone had put huge boulders in the way, and it looked like they were planning to do some maintenance work or some engineering work somewhere on that lay-by, and they had put the boulders in to stop anyone parking there so they could do their work. So that was gone. So then I used my backup, and that was great. So I always plan them in advance. I make a saved list on my Google Maps, and I pin all the places that I'm going to go so that I never have to worry about what I'm looking for. So Google Maps, Google Street View enables me to check out from the air and from the street what might be suitable places. Very often on those Street View sites you can see if there is restricted parking. You can see it on signs, you can see it on the lines on the road, and you can get a feel for how close you are to places. So that's something else that I do. Leave no trace. It's always advisable to turn up later if you're going to park up for the night. If it's in a residential street, I would try to turn up after dark, but it depends on what time of year. I'm not particularly into going to bed really, really late, and I like time to settle down. So I would probably prep the inside of my car somewhere else, and then drive to the location, and then stealthily shut down for the night. I do have curtains for the back of my car, which I made myself. as I say, it's a very small car, so I don't think people will be expecting anyone to be sleeping in the back of it. Now, this is different to what I did last year. My car has very long seats in the front and long footwells, and when you put the front seats down, particularly on the passenger side, I can actually lay out across the seat, but it's quite narrow, and I am a terrible fidgeter at night. So I will sleep on both sides. I'll sleep on my front, I'll sleep on my back. I constantly move. It's just the way I am. So that did not work for me. I had a really terrible night just from that sleeping aspect. And I am also not good at sleeping in new places that I don't know. And sleeping in your car, you're also quite wired up for sounds. You're always listening out in case something might be going on outside. So it's not a very conducive atmosphere for trying to get a good night's sleep. This time around, I am going to put my back seats down and I'm going to sleep in the back. I can't stretch right out, but it is going to allow me to move around a lot, and I do tend to often sleep in a curled up position, so I'm hoping that if I can pad out the base of the car enough and make it comfortable enough, this might be a better option for me. I don't know till I try it. I shall give it a go for my next trip. No spend, no food. Now, last time when I did taking all my food with me, I also took 2 flasks of hot water, which kind of did the job. But I'm planning on buying, I'm going to treat myself to a car kettle this time. I'm going to get a small kettle I can plug in to the cigarette lighter with a USB. And I'm hoping that's going to do a slightly better job. I can still take all the water with me. I've got empty bottles, plastic like lemonade 2-litre bottles, and I'll take a few of those because I do still want my tea and coffee, if nothing else. And that really covers the basics. I think that's everything I want to cover at the moment. The next update I do will be about my actual trip, and I'm going to give a bit more information on that. Something else I want to say about safety before I forget is I never post my YouTubes at the time if I am somewhere. So, I mean, I don't have the technology to edit and post while I'm going to be on a car camping trip anyway. But I would not post while I was out and about doing things because there are some right weirdos out there. And I have heard of people who run camper life YouTube channels who found that people were following them on their trips because they were posting in real time. And that's really creepy. I don't want anything like that happening. I am going to show where I'm going because there are lots of very specific things I want to talk about on this trip. There's a reason I'm going to these places, but I won't be posting them in real time. It'll be a few days, maybe even a week later, and depending on how much material I put together, it may well even be more than one post. I will have to see. I've never recorded one of these before. Last year when I went, I wasn't doing anything like this, so this is new to me. But I would like to document what I'm going to do, and this will be like a real-time, feet on the ground kind of YouTube posts. I mean, a lot of the camper ones, you get very polished ones that look great, and of course they're living more luxuriously if they're in camper vans. I do follow some people who are living a much more basic existence for either necessity or because it's just fun, because they want to go and travel. And I've also seen some for people who literally do car camp overnight if they're going somewhere and they need somewhere to sleep. So there's a whole range of different ways that you can do it. I like to be as cheap and as cheerful as possible. All I care about is enjoying the place where I am at minimal cost. And that's not because I'm a cheapskate, it's because I don't have the money. I don't particularly want to spend the money on things I don't need to. Why am I going to eat out on a car camping trip when I can stash a ton of food in my car? It's picnic food, it's fun, it's different. I can cope with that. I'm not a fussy eater. Just give me food, I'll eat it. So I'm happy to, live on picnic food for a couple of days. Just give me my car kettle and I'll be fine. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about this for now. This will have a follow-up at some point before I go on my trip, which will be about my trip, and then once the trip happens, we'll see how we get on with that. So that's enough for one entry.